You're listening to the #1 podcast for nonprofit leaders, getting your nonprofit fully funded. This is the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. Well, hey, we're back for another great episode of the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. We are so excited that you are here with us today, and we are going to be talking about year-end campaigns.
Yeah.
Jim, this is a very exciting topic.
I can't tell you, this is one of my favorite times of the year. Too many organizations miss the opportunity of year-end giving.
Yep.
They wait until the last minute. Classic that they miss the opportunity of planning and getting an early jump on this. I still talk to ministries last year at year-end that were trying to get their letter out on December 20th. And I just thought, oh man, what did you miss? Yeah. So I'm excited about this.
It's pretty early in the season. I mean, why are we talking about it so early?
Yep. Yeah. Well, planning ahead is so vital. There used to be a time when you could get your letter out mid-December. Then that moved to the first couple weeks of December.
Yeah.
Even then right after Thanksgiving immediately.
Yeah.
Then it came just before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Then it came the week before Thanksgiving.
Right.
And now we're doing a number of mailings and emails starting the first week of November, because mentally that's where people are at now. And if you're not doing that, you are missing out on a lot of money.
Yeah, for some reason I remember a time where Thanksgiving had its own thing. Now we see turkeys and Santa Claus all mixed together.
I know, exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised if someday Santa Claus came out before turkey.
Right, right.
But
well, I mean, it used to be that they'd even wait at least until Halloween was over with. Right. Now, you're getting skeletons and Christmas trees in September. So
it's getting kind of crazy.
It is, yeah.
But it is important to plan ahead, and we want to do our best to help you guys plan ahead. We actually have something special prepared for you. So if you wouldn't mind, sticking to the very end, we're going to have a special offer for you. It's free. We're not going to ask for any money, but we have prepared a little PDF download for you that is going to help you to be very prepared. It will give you all the outline of this lesson and hopefully help you to be a lot more on top of your Giving Tuesday. So definitely stick around to the end. You don't want to miss that. And while you're sticking around, subscribe to our podcast, because we have weekly episodes coming out. We want to help you guys get fully funded. We want to help you get all your tools around your tool belt so that you are fully equipped to pull out your Swiss Army knife and your hammer and know how to use everything at the right time. And that's why we exist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He's Jason Galazinski, 20 years of experience in creating software that came along and helped nonprofit organizations. Together, I'm Jim Dempsey, 38-year veteran with Crew, Campus Crusade for Christ. Together, 60 years of experience that we have to provide information and resources to help you get fully funded.
Yeah, and what we mean by fully funded, there's a little bit of confusion around that sometimes.
Absolutely.
What we mean by fully funded is not just hitting your budget or whatever. What we actually mean is we want
barely getting by.
Yeah, we want you to dream.
Right.
We want you to think about where you could be in 3 to 5 years, and we want to help you hit those dreams. And we have a ton of resources available to you. We even have some online courses available to you to help you hit those dreams. Right. And this is one of the tools.
Yeah,
this is one of the ways we do it.
Absolutely. Let's dive right into this, Jason. The key elements right now, we're going to talk about really 4 key components of the year-end strategy. The first one includes list segmentation, and we're gonna unpack these all in just a few minutes. But we're talking list segmentation. Who are you going to go to? What are the prime people? This could be a time where you go out to everyone, but you want to make sure, you certainly want to go to your current people, but are there some potential, what would I call prospects or suspects that we'll go to? You'll want to we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the marketing elements, email marketing, direct mail. We're going to also talk about Giving Tuesday and the benefit of Giving Tuesday.
Yep.
Then following up on some of those mailings and emails with phone calls, and of course, then coming up on the tail end with those and targeted visits to our major donors, especially that critical few, that 20% that bring in 80% of the dollars. That's going to be what we're going to unpack today in this lesson.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of asking. This time of year couldn't be any more important, Jason, for a nonprofit organization. You'll find that somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to even as high as 60% of nonprofit giving comes in those last 3 months of the year. Now, you may be thinking, okay, wow, we're watching this way earlier than November. And this is kind of strange doing this, but because it's such an important time of the year, such an important element, I want you to get out ahead of this. And I am always encouraging those nonprofit organizations that talk with me about this. I'll get calls all the time. When should we start year end? And I'll get them thinking even as early as the first week of October about this, because there's going to be some preparation. We've got to think about, what do we want to raise money for? We've talked about in the past, as a great example is, we're a pregnancy center. We want to raise money for an ultrasound machine, but we also want to talk about helping to fund the salary of a technician and equipment, materials, and things that need to get that. You want to come up with what's going to be your campaign for the year. That might be $150,000 or more that you hope to raise with that. You want to find out what that is, what your cause is, what you want to target your year-end campaign. And that can take 2 to 3 to even 4 weeks of preparation time to get all that together before you kick off your first campaign on that.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the 3 accelerators that we use for our vision dinner strategy, and we can do a similar type of thing with the year-end campaign, right? Where we're dreaming about what it is that we want to do. And I'm assuming we want to be specific in how we target or how we present those dreams.
Well, you've talked about the SMART goals in the past. What are those SMART goals?
Yeah, we want to have specific, measurable, obtainable, relevant, time-based goals.
Exactly right. And so it's so important. We don't want to assume that people know what our needs are. I have a year-end story that I tell so often over the years, where I had someone who for 15 years gave me the same dollar amount at year-end. I sent a letter, they sent money. I sent a letter, they sent money. One year I got busy at year end. I thought 15 years that they've been giving me this, certainly they're going to realize that I still have needs. Well, by February, it finally sunk in. Wow, I didn't get a gift from this person. I reached out to him to find out. He said, well, Jim, I didn't get a letter from you, so I assumed that you didn't have any needs. As a missionary, as someone who is in a nonprofit organization, we never not have needs, but that's what people thought. So we can't assume that people just know that we have a need. We need to put it out there and move towards that.
Well, that makes sense.
Yep.
I mean, people are just usually not thinking about their local whatever down the street. You know, they usually have their own thing going.
Well, as much as we would like them to be thinking about us every day, unfortunately, they're not, and they need to be reminded about that. That's why too many nonprofit organizations, Jason, are worried about bombarding or worrying about reaching out to people too often. Unfortunately, they're not thinking about us as much as we would like to think they are. Yeah. And so
I like to, I mean, my wife is kind of like that sometimes, you know, where she'll be like, aren't you emailing people too much? Or aren't you? And I'm like, well, they can just delete it.
Sure.
Or they can always unsubscribe. They could always throw the letter in the trash.
That's
like, I would rather get them a letter and have them throw it in the trash than, you know, not get them a letter and potentially risk, you know, them not knowing. So I always like take the assumption that people want to know. Yeah. But, you know, it's our job to remind them. Like we're just reminding them that we exist because people forget.
Generally, I find they want to know more. And if they want to know less, they can, like you said, they can delete or unsubscribe. That's exactly right. So, well, let's dive into the next element, which is really list segmentation. I talked about this earlier. We really want to target who it is that we want to challenge. And you want to make sure that you have a different strategy for each one of those particular individuals.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that we are targeting to the right people. Certainly we've got our critical few, and we will have a very special approach to them, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But then you've got your masses, those individuals who it's that 80% that give 20% of the dollars. You want to make sure you've got a strategy for them, but you also want to make sure that you've got a strategy for your suspects and your prospects.
Right.
How are we going to come to them a little bit differently? And so now you may think, well, I'm a small organization. It's very hard for me to target my audiences. That's fine. Do the best job that you can. It may be that every letter you do is dear friend, but if you can target some of those, that your critical few are at least dear Jennifer and Jason, or dear Jim and Diane, but you may just have to make everyone dear friend, and that's okay too. But that list segmentation side of things is so important to where we're at. Yep.
Okay. Well, what's the next thing that we got to be?
Well, the next thing we need to talk about is that we want to create a special appeal for suspects and prospects. So we want to make sure, are there individuals that at this time of the year, it might be a great time to reach out to them? We've found over the years that through most of the year, it just isn't that cost effective to go out to people who have either never given to us or give very little to us. It's not cost effective. So you'll want to do what we call segmenting your list. You'll want to set aside and segregate those people who are prospects and suspects and set them aside and focus in on your current donors. Those are individuals who've given within the last 12 months, any amount of money within those last 12 months.
Right.
At this time of the year, this might be a really good time because of the giving mood, the atmosphere, the giving spirit, that you do want to target your prospects and suspects. And these people generally are going to need something that's going to pull them in a little bit quicker. So you want to make sure that you've got a story that really, really grabs a hold of them, and that it really helps to get them plugged in.
Well, I always like to say hook, story, offer.
Absolutely.
Right? So hook them in with a great lead, tell a great story, and then give them great opportunity to participate in the ministry.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. So these are the kind of people that you do want to send a dear friend letter to them. You don't have to spend a lot of time. Generally, your letters that you're going to do are going to be about 1 to 2 pages. We've all seen the 4 and 5 page letters go out to people, but I think you can really be very succinct in your letter. Tell them a good story, like you said, hook them in, tell them a good story, share the opportunity, and then challenge them to give. And you can do that. It's pretty difficult to do it in 1 page, but you can do it. I generally will focus in on 2 pages, front and back, for these prospects and suspects. When we get to the current donors and critical few, we'll look at a different approach for them, but front and back, and you could take that into Kinko's. Probably wouldn't be something you do on your photocopier in your office if you've got one, but you could definitely take it into Kinko's and get that done.
I've gotten some of those letters that are 3 or 4 pages long, and I typically just don't even read them because I'm not a reader type person anyways, but when I just see like tons of text, I just don't even, it's interesting, like psychologically, and this might give some insight into some of the younger generation, because I know the younger generation is more like focused on visuals. But you can even be visually appealing with your text, like the way that you space out the text.
Sure.
Having more paragraphs or having
shorter paragraphs,
having, maybe a photo in there that like text wraps around. Like any way that you can make text look more appealing, or even having like, one sentence that's really big that stands out, and you have the other text go around that. Those are the kinds of things that if I see something visually appealing, it draws me in and makes me want to read it, because especially if 1 or 2 sentences pop out at me, that kind of hooks me in. I'm like, oh, what's this about? And then I'm more willing to read it.
That's right.
But if I just get a letter of like 3 pages of straight text and it's just laid out like block, I'm just I don't have time. I don't even know what this is about. Don't care.
Well, you've really, hit on an important element, which is how a good direct mail or good appeal letters written. And we've done a few podcasts on that. So I would encourage our listeners to go out there and check out the podcasts on the content of a good letter. And so those are
go to our YouTube channel and just look up Fundraising Masterminds Podcast, and then you can search our YouTube channel and just type in fundraising letter, and you're gonna find I think we did 2 podcast episodes on how to write a good fundraising letter. It's just great points in there that we talked about
that you can learn. Now, once again, in this particular area, there's no right or wrong when we talk about length of letters, because one of the things we find, shorter letters you get more responses, longer letters you get bigger dollars. So you've got to kind of weigh both those and test to see what your audience is. But we are finding, like you said, as the donor base gets younger, the shorter letters tend to work better. We'll talk about appeals to our current partners at this point in time. Now, this is when you want to get a little bit more specific, more targeted in your approach to these people. These are the kind of people that if you could start to focus in on the Dear Jennifer and Jason kind of a letter, and the written more towards the person themselves. Find out, who is your target person, your target audience. If it's a female 45 to 55, you're targeting more, and you're using their past giving as a way to approach them. So in other words, you could offer a range such as $25, $50, $100. If this segment of your audience generally is going to be giving gifts of $500 or less, you could put out there, a gift for a gift of $100, $250, or $500. You could take what their highest gift is and put that in the middle. So would you consider a gift of $250, $500, or perhaps even $1,000? So you can target the giving ranges depending on your capability and what you can do.
That's a good idea.
You really want to use the beauty of having your current partners is those individuals give you some indication. When we talk about going into challenge and have visits with major donors, that's one of the things we'll talk about is using their past giving as a springboard and at least an indicator for you of how much to ask. So that's important. Now, our next area is appealing to our major donors. And those people, once again, we've talked about this a million times, but it's that critical few, that 20% that brings in 80% of your dollars. These are the very targeted letters. And I can tell you that if you are a small nonprofit organization, and right now you're currently totally overwhelmed by what I'm talking about in getting letters out to people, and you are just saying, I'm barely able to get a letter out. If that's all you can do is get a letter out, this is the group that you're going to want to go to. You're going to want to go to that critical few, because this is where you're going to have your biggest bang for your buck.
Well, and I don't know if you like this idea or not, but there's a great resource available to you now in 2023 and beyond that we like to call ChatGTP. It's an open AI program that helps you to write. It's a language writing tool, and it's really great because it's free, first of all, but you can go in there and you can use it to help you write quickly. So you might be able to say something like, I'm a homeless shelter. I'm trying to write a year-end appeal. I would like to write a story about Johnny that is homeless, and you can kind of feed it some information and you can kind of tell it what to do, almost like you're talking to an assistant, and then it will spit out a letter, that's written really nice. And you could even, once it's spit out a letter, you can it's contextual. So you can say like, well, I like this, but could you reword it to be more like this? And then it'll just reword it. But you can use that as a tool to have like a starting point. So you don't have to feel the pressure. Cause I know I get
starting from scratch.
I get overwhelmed starting from scratch. And sometimes it's nice if you had an assistant with you and you said, hey, I want you to take a stab at writing a letter that has these points in it. Just think of OpenAI as your personal assistant, maybe it could give you something to start with.
Right.
You can cut that and paste it into Word and then just, tweak it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always easier to edit than it is to start from scratch. And that's a great tip to start from scratch. Yeah. Now, I know there's some in our audience that AI just scares people to death.
Probably cringing. They're
exactly.
Like,
what are they talking about? Is this the mark of the beast? And so, but I would say venture into that and at least test that if you need.
I just see it as a tool. Back when the internet came out back in the 90s, people thought that was the mark of the beast.
Right.
Then there's always we tend to be afraid of technology we don't understand.
Yeah, something new. Right.
But I just see it as it's like Siri.
Right.
But it has the ability to understand contextual things.
Right.
And
right.
It's a really great tool for helping with writing.
So the next element then off that is that once you've got those letters that are going out the door or emails, because I'd always recommend, if you're able to do it in a perfect world, I would do your first direct mail letter the second week of November, and I would come up with a more personalized, focused letter to people the middle of December. That's typically your best approach. And then somewhere in between, you've got your email marketing, and then you've got Giving Tuesday. It's just a perfect balance with that. Now, some of you, once again, may be feeling really overwhelmed, and all you can do is just one letter, then get that out in mid-November. But follow up on some of these people, especially your current people. Probably wouldn't do it with my prospects and suspects, but follow up with a phone call. I can tell you that for a typical letter, the response rate is anywhere between 2 and 8% of the people respond. You add a phone call to that, it jumps to 25% response.
Really?
And so making that phone call and saying, Jason, this is Jim Dempsey from XYZ Ministry.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to find out, did you get the letter we sent? Have you had a chance to consider it?
Now,
Would you
Jim,
want to give?
I don't like making phone calls. Can I use one of these recorded services that calls for me?
Jason, there has got to be an AI out there somewhere that will make phone calls for you. Well, I would put it this way. That is probably as effective as you hiring someone to take your wife out on a date once a month. I don't think your marriage would last that long, and people aren't going to continue to give. It is all about the relationship, and I know you're lobbing a softball in for me to hit it out of the park.
I am.
But it's all about relationships. And I get it, Jason. You are 100% right. There's a lot of people that would rather have a root canal than pick up the phone and talk to people on the phone. But it's so important that you follow. And I think you're going to be surprised at how many of those phone calls you really love and enjoy because those people love your organization, and you're probably going to be blown away by how many will want to help and like what you're doing for sure. Well,
a lot of people don't seem to answer their phones anymore because of all the spam calls that we've gotten.
I know.
They don't recognize your number. And so one thing that I have done recently that seems to work well with me making phone calls is I just call with my cell phone.
Yeah.
And some people might be like, oh, I don't know if I want to, the privacy factor or whatever.
Right.
But I don't think people really care, but the thing is when you call from your mobile phone, it says wireless caller, and it feels more authentic,
personal,
like, oh, an actual person is calling me,
so not from a boiler room somewhere,
and if you call people from the office, it may not register the same way on their caller ID, and so they might think it's a spam call and just not answer. But I've had success with getting in touch with. I've gotten in touch with a lot more people just calling them on my mobile phone.
But with the advent of voicemail and everything else, it's not wrong to at least leave a voicemail and say, hey, this is Jason from the heart of Zambia, and I just want to follow up to see if you got the letter and see how God has been leading you. So that's not bad. That's a great worst case scenario. Now, again, you want to get them live. That's always the best. Now, we're going to take it even one step further. Those critical few people. Now, depending on how many critical few you have, if you've got 50 to 100 critical few, I'm not saying that you want to have a personal appointment or meeting with all of them, but I would say you'd probably want to focus in on at least 5 to 10 individuals that you want to take some time in the last 6 weeks of the year to meet with those people, to put before them an opportunity to give to your year-end campaign. Going out to eat around that time. Now, I get it. December, it's a busy time of the year. People are trying to get Christmas parties and office parties and everything else. It's a busy time of the year, so it's not the most conducive, but do your best. The personal appointments are important, and need to make sure that you consider Giving Tuesday as part of your total plan and strategy. And keep an eye out for a podcast we've got coming up soon that'll be specifically about Giving Tuesday, because it's an important part of your strategy. We'll talk about pulling that out as a special component and really providing hydraulics to your year-end campaign, lifting it at the right time, providing kind of a discounted offer, maybe 3 times a matching gift if you've got it. So that's so exciting. And talking about a matching gift, as you're starting to plan in your preparation and planning, make sure that you consider a matching gift option with that. I can tell you that for me, since 2005, offering a matching gift at year end has been a game changer for me in so many of my things. Going to lead gift people and saying, would you give a lead gift? Something as simple as going to 5 people and asking 5 people to give $5,000 so that I can go into year end and say, we will match every gift of $1,200 or more up to $25,000 has been a game changer. So I would strongly encourage all of our listeners to consider adding a match component to your year-end campaign and year-end strategy. You'd have that in your prospect letter. You'd have that in your emails, your letters to your current donors, to your major donors, and especially when you're going in to meet with people face-to-face. And of course, in year-end for your Giving Tuesday.
Well, and with Giving Tuesday, it's actually you want to have like a double or triple match.
Right, that's
right.
You know,
because that's where the sale comes in. You know, we talk about that a lot in our Giving Tuesday podcast that's coming up soon. So definitely don't miss that.
Right.
But you definitely want to incorporate, the matching gift in the year-end campaign.
Jason, this year-end campaign is an exciting time. This time of the year is one of my favorite times of the year. Is it busy? Absolutely. Is it going to take a lot of your time and effort? Absolutely. But I can tell you, every minute that you give to this will be well worth it in the end when you get fully funded by year-end. And that's the focus. So.
Well, and we put together all these points into a concise PDF document. So I'm going to put a QR code on the screen for you. And if you scan this code, it will take you to a place where you can download the PDF. This is just a real quick summary of everything we've talked about, and it will act as your guide for the year-end campaign. If you don't have the ability to scan the code, we'll put the link in the description so you can click on that. But definitely take advantage of that, because it's just going to take everything we talked about in this podcast and boil it all down for you, and you can print it out and have it next to you as you're going through your year-end giving season. So while you're clicking around and doing stuff, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to our podcast, because we release weekly podcast episodes for nonprofit leaders, for ministry leaders, for people involved in pregnancy centers and homeless shelters and Christian schools and anything nonprofit. Really is our heart is that we really want to see you guys get fully funded. And what we mean is we want to help you accomplish your dreams.
Get past just survival.
We want to help you get past surviving, and we want to help you get to the point where you're thriving, right? Jim, you always said that there's plenty of board meetings at nonprofits who just sit around trying to figure out how are we going to pay the bills. And I know you've often said boards are surprised after getting trained by the fundraising masterminds that they don't have to sit around and figure out how to pay the bills anymore. They have to talk about how they're going to spend the money.
And they can dream big dreams. Absolutely. I see that a lot after individuals doing the Perfect Vision Dinner.
So we have a lot of free resources for you on this podcast. We are releasing weekly podcasts, so they're building up, and it's starting to become a library of resources for you as a nonprofit leader. But we also have a coaching program that we release 2 times a year. The coaching program is called the Perfect Vision Dinner, and it is one of the best ways for you to attract new people to your organization and to grow your partner base. It is, I can't tell you how amazing this program is working for people. I mean, we're seeing people who typically would raise maybe 50 to 100,000 at a dinner, raising 2 to 300,000. We've seen people who typically would do 200,000, they're raising 400,000. We're seeing people just blow past what they typically do. And it's because we've really figured out a formula of a lot of little things that you can tweak and change, and it's kind of like putting a rocket booster onto your back and just flying off to the moon.
Whoa, wait a second, Jason. How can I afford another course?
Well, I would say you can't afford not to take this course, because if we're going to help you raise, 50% more money by taking this course, I would say the course is going to probably pay for itself 10 times over.
Wow.
So it's definitely worth looking into. In fact, if you have a dinner coming up this spring, now is the time to get into the course. We typically open the course in October, and we typically open the course in May. There's 2 times a year where the course is open for about a month, and you have to enroll because it's a live course. Right? It's a 3-legged stool, we like to say, right?
Yes,
we have
exactly.
video training that's mixed with live coaching calls every week. That's mixed with a live online community that are alumni from the previous courses, right?
We share, it's shared experiences.
And so all of this is designed to help you raise the funding that you need, even more than what you think you need. And it's all wrapped up into this Perfect Vision Dinner course. If it's October right now, we probably have enrollment open. And if you go to our website, fundraisingmasterminds.net, and you see that it says enroll now, you better jump on that, because it's only going to be open for about a month, and then we close it down.
Window.
If you go to our website and it says join the waiting list, then you've got to join the waiting list, because we will be then for sure join. If it says join the waiting list, then for sure join the waiting list, because we typically will email the people on the waiting list for the next time the course opens. And we usually do an early bird special for those people.
Well, because our course fills up so quickly, we go to the waiting list first, and we give them first priority for the next class. And as a result, we also give special discounts because you took the time to get on the wait list.
Well, Jim, it's been a really good episode. Thank you so much for your insight into the year-end giving.
And once again, my favorite time of the year.
Any final words you want to share with our audience?
Well, just as I have said way too many times probably on this broadcast, it's just so important to start early, plan ahead, whether it's Giving Tuesday or whether it's your total year-end campaign. Start early. Don't wait till the last minute.
And don't forget about Giving Tuesday. It's coming up soon.
Absolutely.
It'll be here before you know it. Be sure to look out for that Giving Tuesday podcast. I'm pretty sure it's coming down the pipeline pretty soon. But thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Fundraising Masterminds. We will see you next week.
Take care.